Hello and welcome to this short video for my fellow Arnor Fellowship members. I have been writing a lot in Fellowship chat and Alliance chats and private chats about commanders and troops and my suggestions and skillings. And I thought instead of typing that much the whole time, I'd make a short YouTube video about it with just some tips from me from all the trying out stuff. I like to try out stuff. You can see me running really wacky builds to just see how much, the Ram Riders defense reduction on the enemy unit would increase my commander's damage done in a whole fight. 10 rounds battle, that is. And we can see, this season is ending soon, so I thought I'd share my thoughts on season 2 or tips. Um, most of us from our fellowship will be changing from Arnor to Erebor, and I thought I'd make a suggestion. So for season 2 start, I suggest instead of leveling multiple commanders at once, I would suggest like picking two commanders or maybe three, but yeah, two. I would really go with two or three that you like the most, that you have been using the most, because I will suggest maybe Commander Seer 2, but what I have seen is I have watched a lot of YouTube videos of people, being a fan of Boromir or then heavily being like Boromir is the best, he's so OP, and stuff like that. And they don't, for me, compare as well to the commanders I just love to use all the time, like Gandalf and Dwalin. And so I suggest you can look at those, my recommendation, but just pick those two commanders that you have been using the most the whole time, because those are the ones you enjoy using and will use them actually, instead of taking one and then being a little bit disappointed, I guess, on how they fare. Um, but so for season 2, my suggestion is pick two commanders and then take all the tiles with them, because we need to get those tiles for power production and resource production. And then when they're out of stamina, you go back into the settlement and you do tips with them. And when after they finish like a 2-hour tip, they may have a little bit of stamina again to try to get another tile with those commanders. So like heavily using just two commanders or three, doing all the tile taking with them, and as soon as they are out of stamina, doing all the tips with them, and then doing all the tile taking with them, just recycling this method to get like two or three of them up to a higher level fast, so you can then start working on higher tiles to do mock battling. Um, so getting just very few commanders high level up is way more important than just leveling multiple commanders at once. Taking a tile with five, different tiles with five, and then having three others do tips. I would not recommend that at all. So for the commanders, you just pick one, but my general suggestion is to have one healing commander in it for sure, like Gandalf or Arwen. Arwen has done more healing um, in the tests I've done or in the battles I've used than Gandalf. I just really like Gandalf because his convener is so strong. But in the beginning of the season, troops are really important, as is stamina too. But I've been seeing that I've been waiting more on troops conscription, I think, than I was waiting on stamina, because, like I said, if they are out of stamina, they do tips. Um, so I think a healing commander is really important in the beginning of the season, because they will have less troop losses when taking all these tiles, because even the low level tiles, like the level 10 tiles and stuff, one is constantly losing troops at the beginning of the season, with those weak units available. And so healing commanders will have less troop bleeding when taking those tiles, so you can for a longer period take tiles with the troops you have. So I suggest you take one healing commander, Gandalf or Arwen or yeah, and well, there are other commanders that can heal too. But take one healing commander, like I would suggest Arwen or Gandalf, and then one other commander you really like. Like for me it would be Dwalin. I really like him also because, on the weekends, getting those Balrogs and dragons, it really helps with the gold, and then with the gold you can, increase the abilities on your units. So so yeah, I really like, running Gandalf for less troop leading and then Dwalin for those weekend events. Um, yeah, since we are at Dwalin right now, I just talk a little bit about him. So why he's good for Balrogs and dragons is because, well, if you have him respect 5, you have the burn damage received reduction. And this one is really good with taking dragons, on those weekend events that give a lot of gold, and those hero medals too that you can then use for Mephin coins or gems. And then he also has Giant Slayer, so the commander itself does more damage against Balrogs or dragons. Um, and then you have Musician, and then this level-headed is really important against Balrogs too, because it removes that burn that they inflict upon the troops, removes one random debuff. So this is why, so basically level-headed and Warrior of the Lonely Mountain is why he is so good for those weekend events. And so now if we're talking about Dwalin, I really like him. I mean, I'm Arnor, I started Arnor, we get Faramir, but I really liked Dwalin. It still was my first. He was the first I had to level 50 because I liked him a lot. So you can of course do like an army buff build with him. So you have abilities that reduce physical damage received by the army. That heals and removes debuffs and increases defense and decreases army attack. Um, this is a yes, a lot of army buffs. What I like even more, I have to admit, is have Durin's blood maxed. So this is a commander damage build. So you can see that it not only increases his might himself, but it also increases skill damage. So we want to have some skill damage. So one skill is Whirlwind that does just a lot of damage. And then we have All In that also does a lot of damage. So I really like him, just running with tanky units and then having those skills that really deal damage. Um, this is taking a while. I should not do this during the video. But what I also like then is, getting Longbeard because it does not increase his damage alone per se, but it increases the damage received by the enemy unit from him. So you will see his damage being higher up in the battle logs because he actually ignores some percentage of the enemy's defense. And then, of course, since Durin's blood is increasing skill damage, we need to get those skills here. Those two that both, well, those are more normal attacks. But yeah, I guess this is what I would run as a damage commander damage build. What I really like those damage commander builds because I can just run tanky units with him. Um, and then I just need those units to survive. They don't really need to do much damage themselves because Dwalin will just run, for 10 rounds deal out damage, and then for 10 rounds again deal out damage, and then for 10 rounds again deal damage. I think he does normally an average of 160k damage as a commander by himself, I think, in the battles I have seen. Um, so yeah, and what you would want to stack on him is might, items that increase might, maybe also increases, maybe increases dwarven defense or HP or something like that, and then you run him with dwarfs. Um, and important for Dwalin is that he is a warrior. So he gets commander might increased, skill points more, and physical damage increased. And that's like his difference to Balin. Like Balin and Dwalin are very similar. If you look at his skills, Balin, you see Warrior of the Lonely Mountain, Longbeard, Giant Slayer, Durance, Blood, Whirlwind, All In. Those are the exact same skills. So again, we could run him as a commander that does damage, that does not buff the army at all. We would do it in the same way, get the skills, get Warrior of the Lonely Mountain, Longbeard to ignore defense, and then we would need to skill Open Wound because that is a skill that does damage, and Endurance Blood increases skills that do damage and not damage that is not a skill. So, Revivalist would not profit from a maxed out Endurance Blood at all. But maybe why it's better to not run Dwalin as a commander that does damage in comparison to Dwalin is because Balin is a leader. So he does not get increased might, like Dwalin, for example, but he actually gets more units. So he has a larger army. So I think an army buff build would work better on Balin than a pure commander damage build. And he has some great skills like Dwarven Leader. I like that. Dwarves receive less damage and deal more damage. We can have just some Iron Warriors, all shield bearers with him, and then Master Throwers. They all receive less damage from like melee units or Dunedains or trolls that attack multiple units simultaneously. So the Master Throwers also can profit from reduced damage received greatly. And Open Wound is also great, especially against good factions because they can have a lot of healing like Arwen or Gandalf. So Open Wound is a great skill for that. Also a skill to counter if we're talking about bad side, like those full Mumakil armies with like I think is it Gothmog or Gorbag? They have some healing. Some commander that I think they would run a full Mumakil army more with like Gothmog, but they also run it with a commander that heals those Mumakils. And Open Wound, if it's a single Mumakil army, it's actually the Mumakils that cannot recover HP. So that's a great, that's what I would run as a counter to a full Mumakil army, a commander that has Open Wound. And then, to reduce their damage, we also need to run a single unit. If they run a single unit, we run a single unit. Um, yeah, so that's my thoughts on the difference between Balin and Dwalin. Went a little bit off track there, maybe. So yeah, that's about Dwalin. Just pack on might with him, commander damage. That's what I like. Some tank units. It's this one's a really wacky build. That's just because I'm constantly trying out stuff because I just find it very interesting. To see it's a tank unit, sure, but I wanted to see if his commander damage actually increases again because those Ram Riders reduce the defense of the enemy unit, so they will receive more damage from the Onlin by itself. And I just need this unit to survive as long as possible for him to do, multiple draws to shot damage. That was my thought process there. It's more of a tryout build. Those for theory crafting, I like doing those. Um, what can I say more? Gandalf is a really great commander. Um, you know, if we look at his skills, really important is the Grey, because, every time the commander deals damage, an allied unit has 50% chance of recovering 100 HP. Now, this triggers every time the commander deals damage, so really, really important is that we, run a weapon that has an ability that, deals damage again. So after the commander attacks, deals damage. And it's not really important how much damage it does. I don't care about this part. I care about that it does damage after the commander attacks. Because what will happen is Gandalf attacks, the Grey triggers, an allied unit has a 50% chance of recovering 100%. Afterwards, this ability triggers. He does a little bit of damage again, and then the Grey triggers again. And again, an allied unit has a 50% chance of recovering 100%. So we just doubled the usefulness of the Grey with this item. So really, really important. Then we just want stuff that increases focus. The more focus he has, the better. Also, makes the army receive reduced damage. And, just focus. And then, if there's another item that also heals, great. What's also really, really strong on Gandalf, for a respect zero ability, it's insane. It's the convener. First two rounds, all allied units gain initiative and a 75% chance to attack twice each round. That's crazy. You know, if we look at my damage calculations here, we can see the sharpshooters, and if we look at the first round, the average damage with maxed ability, so without maxed units, with maxed units, that's for one command point, so 100 units. They will deal a lot of damage in the first round because of their ability, which for the first two rounds they have increased damage. I can show it maybe here. Here they are. You can see first two rounds they gain 40% plus damage to their 60 to 25. So yeah, they do more damage than well, they do more damage than any tier 3 unit in the first round in average. If we're not talking special cases is basically trolls. So bow knights against trolls, they will do more average damage in the first round than sharpshooters. And master axe throwers against trolls, where not only their giant slayer but also battler's bane procs, because trolls are melee units, so they will do most average damage against trolls. But if we're not talking trolls, then sharpshooters are the tier 3 unit that does most average damage in the first round. And so now that, the damage is for 100 units. Now, you put multiple on there. Maybe that's just an example, but you put those sharpshooters on Gandalf. They do a lot of damage in the first two rounds, plus have a chance to actually attack twice for the first two rounds. That's just a lot of damage that they do with Convener. Convener is super strong. Can be countered with a stun on them. But if Gandalf has I don't know, items or something that give stun immunity, or Loth's tier 4 has stun immunity. So yeah, that's a crazy combo. Gandalf with Loth's tier 4 that has stun immunity and does a lot of damage with Convener, you know. And I just had, Dunedains on there because we have been fighting a lot of, Linden and Love for the most part. So something against some ranged units and then just a meat shield. Well, that's maybe something important. Gandalf's Convener does not work with, if you're Linden, your tier 4 unit does not profit from Gandalf's convener, because it's for normal attacks, and Linden's tier 4 does not do any normal attacks. They only have ability damage, so to say. They have an ability that does damage and procs again and again in a fight, but they do not do normal attacks, so they cannot attack twice. They just have this ability that specifically says in which round they do ability damage. And so also, you know, if we are talking about our tier 4, the Rangers of the North that have protection, so you see they have more defense. They are a ranged unit that has fairly high HP and defense, and it gets even more and absorbs enemy normal attacks against allied ranged units. So you can put them with sharpshooters to protect sharpshooters, or with sentinels to protect sentinels, or a great use case for them, I think, is to put them against, if you're against level 300 tiles, where I have seen full troll army compositions, or against some evil factions that has trolls, in roleplay, that is, then they they're great because those tier 4, the Ravagers, they attack multiple units at once, and so the Rangers of the North will actually protect your giant slaying unit, be it Master Throwers, which will do more average damage because their max damage output is just super high, but they have way too low min damage, but their average is still higher than the Bow Knights. The Bow Knights are tankier, so they will survive longer against those tier 4 trolls that does damage to all units simultaneously, but we have the Rangers of the North that can actually tank for them and mitigate that. So that is a use case for them to protect your giant slaying unit, actually. But they will not work against Linden's tier 4, because Linden's tier 4 are not normal attacks, so they will not protect your ranged from Linden's tier 4 ranged, the Noldor. Yeah, that was just a side note. Yeah, Arwen has great healing, greater than Gandalf. Haldir, he's just a ranged. Yeah, just put focus on him. Haldir, just a ranged buff guy. Really important. You max guide. First 2 rounds, all allied units do more physical damage. Again, you can pair that with sharpshooters if you do not like Arnor. Our tier 4 is not meant for damage output primarily. So, Sentinels will do more damage. So we can put that with Sentinels. Then we have Sylvan Elf. 14 points is enough in Sylvan Elf because what we want to max is Forest Agility. You see the allied ranged unit have 20% chance of attacking twice per round. So, we have this damage modifier for the first 2 rounds, then, chance of attacking twice, maybe 1 point into. Let me see. Well, avoidance is not bad. Well, 1 point into March Wardens, because of the next damage avoided. And then, everything in Galadrim, which even buffs all allied ranged units more. And then you just, stack might with him, and you just want, those ranged units on him. Like, for example, 1k cataphracts and 5k sentinels, for example. Yeah, and I'm saying sentinels because, they just do a lot of damage if we're not just talking the first round, but actually a full fight, maxed the average damage of sentinels. It's again the highest, if not against the special case like trolls. So yeah, sentinels do a lot of damage, and we were fighting a lot of good factions. So sentinels was for sure the choice of ranged there. Um, what else can I say? So yeah, I've done, there's a great, Hirgon, you want him for siege damage because of his logistics, and then we just stack the unit with the most siege on him. So guardians, or that's the great thing about erebor. I think their tier 4 is way better, or is really good. I think it's better than the one we had right now, because I was struggling as Arnor to really, utilize our tier 4 to its, potential. I don't know. But, the Iron Warriors, they are a very tanky unit, very high defense, not as much HP as the Swan Knights, for example, but really high, Swan Knights will have that increased defense, but just for the starting rounds to protect their allies. But Iron Warriors have that high defense the whole fight. And their damage is also not bad, 30 to 43, so more damage than the Swan Knights. I'm just comparing it with the Swan Knights because the Swan Knights are also a meat shield. You see them here. But now the thing is, so the total cost of Iron Warriors, one command point, 50 units, right? Compared to the total cost of one command point of Swan Knights. Now, if we compare them from a meat shield perspective, so Iron Warriors, along with Rangers of the North, and haven't calculated the others yet, but they are among the cheapest tier 4 units, and so that's what we want. That concept make total sense. You know, they act as protectors, or as a front meat shield, and so it makes sense for them to be the lowest cost tier 4 units, because they are the meat shield. But Swan Knight, the concept seems totally off for me, because they are an expensive tier 4 unit, and what they do is they die for your cheap tier 3 units. I don't know. That concept just doesn't make sense. You send your more expensive unit to die for your cheaper units. I just don't know if it's, I don't know. I'd rather have the cheap units die than the expensive units die. So just the concept of making a meat shield super expensive and, super long to conscript in comparison, I don't know. Iron Wars just seem like such a better meat shield for me. Sure, they don't have the extra protection ability that they soak damage for all their allied units. And the Swan Knights, if you have a unit that attacks multiple of your units simultaneously, the Swan Knights will just eat up that damage and die, I guess. So yeah, the counter here would be to use units that attack multiple units simultaneously, because the Swan Knights just eat all of that damage. So the Iron Warriors seem a better meat shield for me just from the concept. And additionally, you know, they do more siege damage than any tier 3 unit I have accessible. So from all the units accessible, they are the highest siege damage. So not only will they be my meat shield unit, they will also be my siege unit. So I have a high interest when I'm erebor to make a lot of Iron Warriors, because they have this double function. I want them for siege with Hirgon, or other commanders, I want them as a meat shield for a lot of my armies. So, constantly producing them with a low cost, with not that much time comparison to a high cost long time. Yeah. Um, just my thoughts on them real quick. That I think they are a great tier 4 unit. What else is there to say? There are cavalry commanders that are really strong, Eowyn or Theoden or Eomer, um, really strong. They do, you know, a lot of healing to their mounted units and a lot of damage. So they are certainly very strong. Um, the ones I really tested out too were Faramir and Boromir. You know, Boromir has a lot, like every single skill of him is useful, you know. That's in stark contrast to, you know, tip time completion speed up. When I had him, you know, on the respect free, I don't know. I had these maxed and then I needed to put points into, you know, a 2 hour tip completed like 15 minutes faster or something. I don't know. It doesn't help me. I'm not, you know, watching the screen waiting for the tip to be finished by Faramir. So I've like saved 15 minutes looking at the screen waiting. I don't do that. I don't know. This tip completion time speed up. It just doesn't do it for me at all. But what Haldir and Faramir are really, really useful for is, you know, flanking is what I used him for because against, you know, good factions like Love and Linden that, you know, use a lot of ranged, or I've seen using a lot of ranged, he deals physical damage. Um, Let me see which skill it is. It's Foresight. So the thing is, Foresight is really important if we're dealing with Oathbreakers. I did not need to deal with Oathbreakers this season, you know, because we had this Southern Alliance we can see here, this whole alliance here. So we never fought against, you know, Gondor, for example. But Oathbreakers, they, you know, they don't take physical damage. But with Foresight, you can see a chance, all allied units have a chance to ignore enemies' avoidance status each round. So if that procs, your unit will do full physical damage against those Oathbreakers. So this is a really important skill because good factions do not have that many tools to deal with Oathbreakers. We have, you know, sure, Haldir does some poison damage. Yeah, but this foresight skill is really important. We don't really have burn damage, units that do burn damage, commanders that do burn damage. Evil side can deal way better with Oathbreakers, I think, than good factions. We have a little bit to counter, so we would need to use that. Um, you know, Boromir, he's all right. He's not my favorite though, but you know, he increases those uh, manish units, I think. So getting manish units on him is certainly great. Um, we can see it here, nobility. We can see also, you know, counterattacks and then, you know, getting their defense up per round. It's not bad. It's not bad. I just, you know, those are the two I love the most. I don't know. I just really liked trying around with them, you know, doing wacky builds, wacky army compositions, just like, you know, the Dwalin with full guardians attacking, either, you know, either used as siege or either used as attacking. Didn't matter to me. So he could do both. That was really funny. Um, Oh, Gimli is another one I could recommend if we're going Erebor, because where do we have him here? I think he has some good skills. So it's the friend relations. So our iron warriors would receive less damage. Also the sentinels themselves, but then also protect elves. So the iron warriors who are very tanky would then protect the sentinels from damage. And so I think this tree alone is already very good if we have iron warriors available and then, you know, we just put some sentinels in there, or like bow knights if we are against possibly trolls, and then we have, stuff that increases Gimli's commander damage by himself. I guess it's similar with Legolas. So this is my second account, right? With mostly the same level 50s. But Legolas here, he does a lot of damage. I like Legolas damage. So if we look into the battle logs, we will find here where we retook our old capital. Here he is. If we look at this fight, then we can see he did 262k damage as a commander by himself. It was with just the siege unit because I wanted him to siege, but it was like super close and it retook our capital. We were like, it would have reset in under 1 minute, and we just did it. And it was just taking so long because Lyndon was constantly putting armies on there again when we killed all those armies on the capital itself. And so I just sent everything I had. And so, yeah, Legolas did just a lot of damage. And so what I would like is to have him respect level 5. Also, just stack might on him. And why he does so much damage is because he has a chance to attack twice each round already with the damage he already deals, and then just, some more commander damage increasing stuff. You could also buff the army, of course. But then, you have those skills with Iron Warriors, man. Round 5 onwards, those Iron Warriors just, get the damage increase. They already do a lot of damage. If we look at Iron Warriors, average full fight damage output against melee units, right? The Battler's Bane and the enemy's tank units will be most likely melee units also. They do more, like than heralds. Or, here it is. They do more than heralds. Yes, significantly. That's just, one command point still, 50 Iron Warriors or 100 heralds. But heralds will counterattack though, so we can't ignore that. But they do a similar of amount like bow knights, and they are the tank unit. And then we can see, some more damage than Dunedains if they are against melee, more damage than Cataphracts if, just, yeah, normal. More damage than Ram Riders. I don't know. Just on paper, Iron Warriors seem great, so I'm happy that we did a vote in our fellowship, Gondor or Erebor or some elven factions, and most of us voted Erebor. So I'm happy about that. They look really great on paper, Iron Warriors. Like I said, meat shield and siege unit. I guess their drawback would be that they're slow, so armies with Iron Warriors should be more easily bounced. Let's say it like that, especially if you have those eagle armies that aren't meant to fight, but just to be there to pounce enemy armies. That's a fun game to play. To just have some few armies that just have, like 50 or 100 eagles on them to just bounce the enemy armies, but to avoid direct conflict. And then, he also gets elves and dwarves damage received reduction and protect elves, like what we've seen from Gimli, like the Iron Warriors also protecting all elves. And, increased defense, received damage, more damage. And, I don't know, just running him with only Iron Warriors would be very interesting because he does a lot of damage. Yeah, I think that's it so far for this video. Just with some of my thoughts, some of my some of my tips on these commanders, on their skilling maybe, on their gear. Well, in season 2, pick 2 commanders, level them up as fast as possible. And yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for watching the video. Saved me some time from typing in those chats. And, just really interesting to always try stuff out. I'm really grateful for all the battle log chats we have from the Alliance, where I also see those Mordor units and everything, and from the Fellowship, because I always go, or I often go and read those detailed battle logs to see what's going on and to come up with new army troops, or just with the best against certain factions and to counter certain troops. It's really fun to do it. So thanks for watching the video.